Hello dear students, welcome to 2xzion.com. In today's session, we are going to see about the working of the heart, the structure, the valves and the different chambers of the heart. And last but not the least, of course, the facts of a human heart. So let's quickly get into the topic. So what is a human heart? How do we define a human heart? A human heart can be defined as a muscular organ, especially which pumps the blood throughout the body. If you talk about the location of the heart, it is located in the middle cavity, of the chest region, exactly between the lungs. So, of course, all of you know that in most of the people, the heart is located on the left side of the heart. The heart is composed of many smooth muscles. It is composed of many smooth muscles and it has four different chambers. The four chambers which contracts in a specific way by allowing the human heart to pump the blood from the body. Okay, so the blood brings the deoxygenated blood or the impure blood, which consists of the CO2, the carbon dioxide, from the body into the lungs, and there the lungs purify this deoxygenated blood and converts it into oxygenated blood, the blood which consists of oxygen. That is the meaning of oxygenated blood. In other ways, we can say it is a pure blood with no impurities. So from the lungs, the purified blood, it gets back again to the rest of the body through aorta. So this is the efficacy, the first efficacy of the heart, which we are going to learn in detail with different types of valves and the chambers in detail throughout this session. The next point is the heart. When you talk about the heart is a very specialized and a vital organ. When it is specialized organ, of course, it is a delicate organ as well. Supposing if the heart does not function properly, what happens? All the organs will die because of the lack of oxygen. Why? Because the blood supplies the oxygenated blood to the rest of the body. I already told you. So supposing if the heart does not function, there is no oxygen. If there is no oxygen, all the organs will become a failure. It will stop functioning. So most of the heart diseases, when you talk about the heart diseases, most of the heart diseases occurs because of the lifestyle and the patterns of the food what we are following. Cholesterol. What is cholesterol? Is high content of lipids, the high content of fats. Normally, this cholesterol level is normally seen in the arteries of the heart. So, as the person gets older and older, this is very, very likely and this is very common in all the people. Nowadays, this cholesterol is common from the age of 30 itself because of the lifestyle and the patterns of food what we are eating. So, stick on to a very good diet, children. So supposing when you are eating the food which is rich in fats, especially in lipids, what happens? It will lead to cholesterol. And in rarer cases also, it is also like this because of some infection. Because of some infection through food or because through any virus or bacteria, the heart will be affected with an infection. And of course, also because of the protective layers, and hence the heart disease is created. The chambers of the heart, when I was talking about the chambers of the heart, so in human beings, it is four chambered heart. The upper two part, will be the auricles and the lower two part will be the ventricles. In mammals and in birds, it has efficiency like 1, 2 and 3 chambered hearts, normally found in other animals. And it is thought that warm-blooded animals, especially the warm-blooded animals, they need a very high efficacy of circulation to satisfy the demands of the cell for the oxygen level. And of course, it is very, very true in the case of humans as well. Because brain, when you talk about the brain requires a constant supply of oxygen. The brain needs a constant supply of oxygen so that it can function properly. Let's get into the function of the heart. What is heart and how does it function? The heart pumps the blood through the circulatory system at a very high pressure. So it is said that 5,000 ml worth of the blood vessels each minute. So it circulates about liters, that is 5 liters of blood throughout 100 miles. And we will talk more about how the heart comprises, and we will also talk about what is the structure of the heart. The pumping action, when you talk about the pumping action of the heart allows the movement of many substances between the organs, including the nutrients, the waste products, the hormones, and many other chemical messengers. So oxygen is always a mandatory and it's a required action or the process needed for the animal cell to perform many metabolitic activity. Without the oxygen, the cellular action will not take place, the metabolitic activity will not take place. So oxygen is mandatory and it is required for all the animal cell to perform various cellular respiration. Without oxygen, just imagine what will happen. Supposing if there is no oxygen, what will happen? The cells cannot break down the food. The cells cannot break down the food to produce the ATPs. What are ATPs? ATPs are nothing but the adenine triphosphate molecules. So once if it cannot break down the ATP, the cellular energy cannot take place. So oxygen is required for all the animals to perform the cellular respiration. Without oxygen, the cells cannot break down the food to produce the ATPs. So none of the energy dependent products can function. None of the energy dependent product can function without the oxygen. Neural tissues. When you talk about the neural tissues includes the brain, all of us know. So this neural tissue, including the brain, it is very, very sensitive in regard to the oxygen. And they also maintain a special cellular bonding, a special cellular or the chemistry is maintained, which is maintained throughout the consumption of the energy. Supposing if the ATP stops, the ATP is nothing but the energy. Supposing the ATP stops without the oxygen, what will happen? The neural cells will begin to die within some minutes. So for this main reason, the body has taken many measures to protect the heart. The body itself has taken many measures to protect the heart. And of course, it is located between the rib cage. The heart is located below the rib cage and it is positioned between the lungs. It is positioned between the lungs. It is also supported and it is also covered by a protective layer called the pericardium. Now, what is this pericardium is? The pericardium is nothing but the protective layer of the heart. The next layer, this pericardium layer, is also consists of some fluids, and that fluid is called as a pericardium fluid. This pericardium fluid will protect the heart from shocks and other frictions. So hence this pericardium becomes a protective layer for the entire heart. So that's why I told you the body itself takes the measure to protect the heart. No one instructs the heart. The body itself teaches the mechanism of protection. Okay. Next one. Let's see into the heart structure. The heart is designed in such a beautiful and it is in a unique design. It consists of many components, especially it consists of many chambers and many blood vessels, many capillaries, and of course the arteries, veins that passes and helps in the process of the circulatory system. The heart has three important layers of tissues. So we are going to see what are these three layers and what are the functions of these three layers in this session. The first one will be the epicardium. The epicardium, when you talk about the epicardium, it is the outermost layer. It is the outermost layer. And of course, when it is an outermost layer, it forms as a protective covering. When you talk about it is an outermost layer, it forms as a protective covering. It keeps the heart with full of lubrication. That is, it prevents the heart from any shock and from any friction. That is the main function of an epicardium. The next one will be the myocardium. So as the term myo means which is seen in the middle layer. This myocardium is a muscle of the heart. And of course, the main function is it helps in pumping the blood throughout the body. That is the main function of the myocardium. And of course, the next one will be the endocardium. When you talk about the endocardium is a very thin and a protective layer which is seen inside the heart. And of course, it is made up of some smooth, some slippery endothelial cells. Now, what is this function? The main function is that it prevents the blood from sticking inside the heart and forming a clot. So, it prevents the clot. Okay. Next, the chambers of the heart. The chambers of the heart. The heart has 4 chambers which are designed in a unique way for the blood to pump, for pumping of the blood from the body and bringing it to the lungs and back again with the full force. It sends out the oxygenated blood to the aorta for the rest of the body parts. So let's discuss about the 4 different chambers of the heart. The first one will be the right atrium. Let's talk about the right atrium. As you see in the figure, the right atrium there. The right atrium are the small chambers of the heart, and they have the thinner muscular walls. They have a very thin muscular walls. That is because it can only receive the blood from the veins, and they don't have to pump it back to the whole body. I repeat, they don't have to pump it back to the whole body. The right atrium has to receive the blood from the body's vein. That is the right atrium, the first opening, the opening where the deoxygenated blood enters through the superior vena cava and through the inferior vena cava. The atrium has to receive blood from the body veins, and it will pump into the left ventricle. into the left ventricle, and it will again pump into the left ventricle, where the real action or the real pumping begins. Now let's talk about the right ventricle. What is this right ventricle? When you can see in the picture itself, okay, in the given figure, the right ventricle, it has many large chambers, and these chambers are very thick and strong. And what is the function of this right atrium is that it is responsible for pumping blood to the organs. There are two ventricles because it is of like two different circuit where the blood needs to pump throughout the circulation, where the blood receives the oxygen. So the blood receives the oxygen from the lungs. The oxygen filled blood again, it travels and reaches the aorta, and it empties itself, or it goes outside to the rest of the body parts. So here it maintaining these two separate divisions with two separate ventricles is very, very efficient. With the two ventricles, the heart can generate the force. With the ventricles, it can generate the force and it can deliver oxygen to the cells. It can deliver the oxygen to the cells in a very rapid way, or in a very fast way. The right ventricle is, when you talk about the right ventricle, it is attached by the pulmonary veins, and it pumps blood throughout the pulmonary artery and to the lungs. Here what happens? So what happens here exactly? The blood gets filled with the oxygen at a very high pressure, and finally the blood returns to the left atrium. The left atrium, when you talk about the left atrium, it receives the pure blood, or the oxygenated blood from the veins. From which veins? From the pulmonary veins. It pumps the blood into the left ventricle. Again, this left ventricle pumps the blood throughout the rest of the body. After the blood and the circulation throughout the body, the oxygen has been exchanged for carbon dioxide waste from the body cells. The blood enters the right atrium. The blood, what happens? It enters the right atrium, and the process starts to begin again and again. In most of the people, this whole circulation part takes about a minute to complete. In most of the peoples. Let's see the valves of the heart. What are the valves of the heart? The heart valves are biologically made, and this valves allows the blood to flow through the heart in one direction, ensuring that all the blood gets what it has to be needed with. And also, here are some of the valves. Let's see some of the important valves. What are these valves? Of course, the valves are the tricuspid valves. So here in the slide you can see the tricuspid valves. The tricuspid valve is called as the audioventricular valve. Now these audioventricular valves have to stand up with a very high pressure to ensure that the blood is not gets back again, or it prevents the backflow of the blood. As the ventricle contracts, okay, when the ventricle contracts, the blood squeezes out, the blood gets squeezes out. The tricuspid valve, when I was talking about the tricuspid valve, it ensures that the blood in the right ventricle goes into the pulmonary veins, it gets into the right ventricle, goes into the pulmonary artery and reaches the lungs. Instead of being pushed back, that is, it prevents the backflow of the blood. It never, if supposing if the backflow happens, the person will collapse. The main function of this tricuspid is to prevent the backflow of the blood. Next one will be the pulmonary valve. The pulmonary valve is otherwise called as the semilunar valves. Where are these semilunar valves found? The semilunar valves are found in the arteries. What is the function? Okay, so long we saw where it is present. Now let's see the function of this pulmonary valve. What is its function? The main function is to prevent the blood from flowing backside, that is, from the arteries into the heart chambers. It prevents that. And this is important, this is very, very important, because the ventricles will suck the blood in form of atria, and therefore what happens, it expands after they expel the blood into the arteries. Imagine without the proper functioning of semilunar, what happens? Without the proper functioning of this semilunar valves, the blood can flow back into the ventricles instead of going to a rest stage of the body. Now this will drastically decrease the efficacy of the heart, with which the heart can move the oxygenated blood through the body. And of course, the pulmonary veins. The pulmonary veins, when you talk about the pulmonary veins lie in between the pulmonary artery and the left ventricle. So, I repeat, the pulmonary valve lies in between the pulmonary artery and the left ventricles. Here, it ensures that the blood pumps into the pulmonary artery and continues towards the lungs. For what? For the process of filtration, instead of returning back to the heart. So that is the main function. The next one will be the mitral valve. The mitral valve is otherwise called as the audioventricular valve. This special valve, it lies between the left atrium and the left ventricle. It lies between the left atrium and the left ventricle. Here also, it prevents the backflow of the blood. It is from the ventricle into the atrium. That is the main function. It prevents the backflow of the blood. And the mitral valve lies at the opening of the aorta. When you can see the picture itself, it lies in the opening of the aorta, which is the largest blood vessel in the body. The aorta is the largest blood vessel in the body. The aorta is a central artery. Now, when you talk about the aorta is nothing but the central artery from which all the other arteries gets filled. and of course it is thicker than, it is very thicker, and where it splits into two to become the artery of each legs, and from there it splits and it reaches the leg part. The next one will be the aortic valves, or the aortic valves. What are these aortic valves are? The main function of the aortic valve is to prevent the blood from flowing backwards, that is from the aorta into the left ventricle. Many people, when you talk about when you take about many people have minor irregularities. They have very minor irregularities with these valves, such as the mitral valve. Supposing the mitral valve collapses or failures, what happens? This makes the heart very less efficient in working, and they can easily experience many disorders, many heart disorders. People with minor valve issues, they often lead a very healthy life. They often lead a normal and a healthy life. However, supposing if it leads to the failure, what happens then? If it leads to it becomes a big drawback for the heart and the flow of the blood to carry it. And that is the reason, that is the main reason why people with this condition, especially when the mitral valve collapses or when it does not work properly, are often they are termed with diagnosed with many problems. Okay, the next one we are going into the sinoauricular node, or the sinoatrial node. The sinoatrial node is a very important node. Especially it helps in the proper functioning of the heart. So this slide shows the sinoatrial node. You can see it right on top. It is also a very important part of the heart. And of course this sinoatrial node, it has a group of cells in the walls of the right atrium of the heart. The cells in the sinoauricular node produces some signals. It produces some signals. In other terms, I can say it sends the electric impulses. Okay, the electric impulses, which helps in the regular rhythm of the heartbeat. That is the lub-dub. The lub-dub is a regular rhythm of a heart. The lub and the dub. The lub will be the longer sound, and the dub will be the shorter rhythm. So this cells in the sinoauricular node will produce the electrical impulses. It will produce the electrical impulses in regulating the lub-dub, especially the rhythm of the sound of the heart. These impulses helps in the contraction. It helps in the contraction of the four chambers. It helps in the contraction of the four chambers of the heart. Supposing if this sinoauricular node is very problematic, or if it does not work, the sinoauricular node is otherwise called as a pacemaker of the heart. Okay, so what happens in this case? Artificial pacemakers are implemented, or artificial pacemakers play a very important role. It has been transplanted. It is fit. The artificial pacemakers, these replicate the action of the this sinoauricular node, the sinoauricular node, by producing a similar electrical signal, where in some people where this sinoauricular node does not work, they have to fit into the artificial pacemakers, because even the artificial pacemakers can produce the similar electrical signals, which helps in the contraction of the chambers. Okay, so however, the healthy people, a very good people with good health, have a natural pacemaker. For the ones where the heart does not contract, or whether they feel with some complication in the heart, in that case they are recommended to go for the artificial pacemaker. Why? Because this artificial pacemaker will give the similar signals. It will send the electrical signal so that the contraction of the chambers takes place in the rhythm of the heart. So the next one will be the heart facts. Before going into the heart facts, let's quickly see the blood flow in the heart. Okay, so the arteries, I already told you, the arteries receive the oxygenated blood from the heart and they supply it throughout the body. This we already know. Whereas the veins, they carry, what do they carry? They carry the deoxygenated blood from all the parts of the body to the heart for the purification or for the oxygenation. In other terms, I can say the right atrium receives blood from the veins. So after it receives the blood from the veins, it pumps to the right ventricle. So after that, it receives the blood, it pumps to the right ventricle. Now, what this right ventricle does? The right ventricles, they pump the blood, okay, and which is received from the right atrium to the lungs for the purification. The right atrium here, it receives the oxygenated blood. The left atrium receives the oxygenated blood from the lungs and pumps it to the left ventricles. And of course this left ventricle pumps the oxygenated blood throughout the body through the aorta. The oxygenated blood is pumped and it's sent to the rest of the body. So this is the flow of the blood in the heart. Let's see the circulation in the heart. So the blood circulation in the heart is of the double circulation. I repeat, the blood circulation in the heart is the double circulation, which means that the blood can pass twice. One circulation involves, what does it involves? The entry of the blood. The entry of the blood from the various parts. From the various parts, the entry of the blood takes place where? To the heart region. Now here, the blood is deoxygenated. This deoxygenated blood needs to be purified. Okay, the deoxygenated blood consists of the carbon dioxide, and here this deoxygenated blood has to be purified. It has to be purified, and the purification can be done only by the lungs. So here the deoxygenated blood goes to the lungs for oxygenation or for the purification process. The second circulation. So the second circulation involves the oxygenated blood. Okay, the oxygenated blood from the lungs is taken to the heart. It is taken to the heart. Okay, and there this oxygenated blood gets exited or it gets outside through the aorta, and from there the pure blood or the blood which contains oxygen is supplied. It is taken to the rest of the body for various activities. So the force that you also have to talk about, the force that blood exerts against the walls of a vessel is a blood pressure. Now this blood pressure has become very, very common nowadays, right? Because everybody is very ferocious and everybody we are talking like very fastly, isn't it? So what happens? The blood also will become good force with high pressure. So when the blood is in pressure, what happens? It will go and hit the walls, especially of a vessel, of a heart vessel, and this is called as a blood pressure. The force of the blood which goes and exerts. Normally, when does the pressure comes? When we are very angry, right? When we are very angry, when we are very ferocious, when you are fighting and all that, what happens? The blood also will be very forcefully. It will exert pressure, right? The pressure of the blood, the force that the blood exerts against the walls of the vessel is called as a blood pressure. And of course, this is measured by an instrument called the sphygmomanometer. Note, the pressure of the blood inside the artery during the contraction. Which contraction? The ventricular contraction is called as a systolic pressure. So the pressure of the blood inside the artery, especially during the ventricular contraction, is called as the systolic pressure. The pressure of the blood, okay, the pressure of the blood which is seen inside the artery. It is seen inside the artery during when? During the ventricular relaxation. First, ventricular contraction, here the ventricular reaction, and this is called as the diastolic pressure. The diastolic pressure. And of course, the normal range of the blood pressure, the BP they say, right? The normal range of the blood pressure will be 120 mm by 80. This is the 120 by 80 is a normal pressure. In some case, when you exert, maybe it can increase, but not more than 140 and all. If it goes more than 140, 150, which means it is a very high pressure, then something has to be done. You have to go to the doctor and get the solving of what the problem of the heart is. So the normal blood pressure is 120 by 80. So this is the entire force and how the blood reacts. Let's get into the heart facts. Let's see about the heart facts. The heart pumps about 6,000 to 7,500 liters of the blood in a stipulated day, in a day. So the average blood which is pumped by the heart in a day is 600 to 7,500. And the heart is situated exactly in the center. It is exactly situated in the center of the chest. And on an average, okay, the heart beats about 100,000, that is 1 lakh time during a day. That is around 3 million beats in a lifetime. Is it not very interesting? Yes. So on an average, the heart beats about 3 million beats in the lifetime. That is in a day, it is 100,000. Okay. And the average male heart, when you talk about the male heart, it will weigh around 280 to 340 grams. And of course, that is when you talk in ounce, it is 10 to 12 ounce it measures. And of course, in females, what is the weight in the females? In females, it is around 230 to 280 grams. That is, which is exactly 8 to 10 pounds, 8 to 10 ounce. And when you talk about the heart, how can you see the size of the heart? It is just exactly the size of your fist, just the size of your fist. Just if you just turn your fist and see, this is the exact size of your heart, of your one's heart. You can just measure by seeing the fist, the fist of your hand. And the adult heart beats about 60 to 100 times. In an adult, the heart beats about 60 to 100 times per minute. Per minute. Very interesting, right? And in newborns, in newborns, what is the heartbeat? The heart beats at a very faster rate than that of the adults. In newborns, it is very, very fast. That is about 90 to 190 beats. 90 to 190 beats per minute. So these are some of the important facts. And of course, when you take the adults, in adults, the heart pumps about 5 quarters of blood each minute. Approximately, when you see it is 2000 gallons of blood. Gallons are nothing but the units, right? The units of blood each day. And the heart beats exactly 100,000 times, right? Each every day. And in 70-year-old, the average heartbeat is more than 2.5. That is in 70-year lifetime. In 70 years of lifetime, it is 2.5 billion times. So very, very interesting, right? So in today's session, in this complete session, we learnt about what is heart. Okay, how the heart functions, and we learnt about the different layers, the epicardium, the myocardium, the endocardium, right? We also learnt about the chambers of the heart, how the heart is divided. Of course, it is divided by the upper two chambers and the lower two ventricles, upper two atrium and the lower two ventricles. That is totally, it is 4 chambers. And we also saw the functions of the heart. What is the function, right? And we also saw about the facts, the interesting facts, and each valve, how each valve functions in a proper way. I was also discussing about the sino-auricular node. The sino-auricular node is otherwise called as the pacemaker of the heart, I told you. And supposing if it does not happens, if the heart does not functions, the sino-auricular node does not functions, what does it results with? Right? The contraction of the heart, especially the chambers, will not take place. So in that case, the person has to go for artificial pacemakers. I already told you. The patient has to go for the artificial pacemakers. So very, very interesting, right? Today, I think, hope you all enjoyed the session, and it should be useful to you. So wonderful working of the heart, and maybe in the next class, hope you all understood this session. I think this session would be very useful to you. If you like this video, please subscribe to our channel 2xscion.com, share the video, and of course, don't forget to hit the thumbs up button there. See you all in the next video. Until then, it's me signing off. Take care, children.